Good morning, my folks. How are you today? New folks, potheads returning. For folks that don't know, the new folks, potheads are my regular audience who joined me for a coffee with Texas Paul, aka the Coffee Pot. I'm glad to see you folks. We got a little programming note for you to start with. Per your request, we have moved the show to 10 a.m. as you well see here today. This week, we're also adding the second show you requested on Wednesdays. It will also be at 10 a.m. in the morning. Always responsive to you folks. Always do what you folks want to do. So take a moment, go fill your cups. We've got a lot to talk about today. Let's get into it. Good morning, my people. I hope you're as fired up as I am. I hope you're ready to go today. We have a great day ahead of us. We've got some wonderful news. Well, let me take that back. Let me reclassify that. I wouldn't call it wonderful, but a deal's been made on the debt ceiling. We're going to talk about that deal and what it means. We're going to talk about Amanda Gorman. If you recall, Amanda Gorman gave a wonderful speech at the Biden inauguration where she read to us her poem, "The Hill We Climb." Much going on with her and her book in Florida. We're also going to talk about Ken Paxton a little bit. And when I say a little bit, I went into I did a take for this for the Midas Media Network. And you'll notice this is an independent channel. This is my channel. This isn't a Midas channel. This is my personal channel. This is for Texas Paul Production. This is me. I am also a avid contributor to the Midas Media Network. I love those guys. I support those guys. I 100% am behind them. That is why whenever I do news for them, I do not step on it by doing it again on my show a day later. That's just not right. It isn't. So what I'm going to invite you to do is after the show, head over to Midas Media, click over to their channel, and take a look at my take on Ken Paxton. I'm just going to give you some cliff notes on it. But again, after the show, head over and take a look at what we've done over there. It's exciting. It's good news. Long and short of it is Ken Paxton's been impeached. And for folks that don't understand, being impeached doesn't mean removed from office, although in this case, it does temporarily. In the state of Texas, if you're impeached, you're suspended from your office temporarily while the trial takes place. It is good news that this finally happened. It is bad news that it took over 8 years for it to happen. The Republicans decided that Ken Paxton was finally embarrassing enough. The trouble he had gotten himself into was simple enough that people could understand it and put it into a soundbite. He wanted to get his freak on in Austin instead of his freak on in San Antonio, so he got his girlfriend a gig in Austin, which amounts to an illegal campaign contribution. Done. He's done. He also is involved in a civil war here in the state of Texas in the Republican Party. here in the Republican Party, you had Greg Abbott, who is a weakling and now a turncoat, who was an avid Trump supporter. He could not get enough of Mango Mussolini's taint until he fell in love with Pudding Fingers DeSantis. And he switched sides. Dade Fallon is the Speaker of the House here in Texas, and he took a side. Once an avid Trump supporter, he has got on the shameful train. Ken Paxton, hardcore Trumper, stayed on the Trump train. And basically what you're seeing here with this impeachment is Dade Fallon is breaking it off and Ken Paxton in a civil war over Trump versus DeSantis. Ken Paxton drew the first blood. He went after Dade Fallon, who was drunk as a skunk on the floor of Congress, couldn't gavel things in. He had to lean and hold himself up to gavel things in. He was slurring his words, and it was humiliation. And Ken Paxton tried to take Dade Fallon out with that, called for his resignation. Dade Fallon took Ken Paxton out with the support of Abbott, albeit behind closed doors support, because Abbott has not come out really and made any statements on this. He is hiding in the closet and trying very hard not to get any of the crap that's being flung back and forth between these two monkeys on himself. Republicans voted, I believe it was 121 to 23 to impeach Ken Paxton, which will send this to a trial probably in about a month and a half. We're looking at a time frame in about a month and a half. So that's enough about Ken Paxton. Like I said, you want the deep dive, go to the Midas Media Network. Check out my take over there after the show. Don't leave now, for God's sakes. We've got a good show for you. Let's start with Amanda Gorman. Just to remind folks who Amanda Gorman is. This lovely young woman right here is Amanda Gorman. If you remember, she, like I said, this is at the Biden inauguration, gave a wonderfully eloquent and beautiful recitation of her poem, The Hill We Climb, which is about overcoming adversity. Forgive me. It's about overcoming adversity. And it is a beautiful poem. It captivated the entire country. Everybody was talking about it. And right-wingers, because it is about everybody doing better. Like I always say, we all do better when we all do better. That's the basis of this poem. So the right-wing racists went nuts. Enter Ron Pudding Fingers DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is doing his best Nazi impression. And as you know, leading the charge to ban books and try to reshape our culture. Well, in doing so, he has put a bunch of nuts in charge in Florida. He has packed school boards. They have done everything they can to put as many right-wing freaks on Florida school boards as possible. They just have. And what this has resulted in is the most horrible people. And there's no other way to put it. They're just disgusting, horrible people shaping our kids' curriculums and what they can see. And I'll give you, let's talk about the woman that got Amanda Gorman's book pulled from the shelves. Now, the school district is claiming that that they did not ban her book. They are just saying it. We did not ban her book. We didn't ban it. It's not banned. It's not banned. No, they just pulled it off the shelves. Just pulled it off the shelves. Amanda Gorman's book is rated for the 5th grade, so they took it out of elementary schools, which is their tactic to claim, oh, well, it's not age appropriate. Well, the industry standard says, yes, it's a 5th grade level. It is age appropriate, but this is the tactic they're using, is to claim something is not age appropriate. And that's how they got Amanda Gorman's book pulled. And let me introduce you to the woman responsible for that. This, folks, is Miss Daily Salinas. Yes, that's her name. Daily Salinas. And yes, that is a picture of her at a Proud Boys rally with Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, the convicted leader of the Proud Boys, the January 6th insurrectionist. She is a right-wing extremist, white supremacist. She is part of the Cuban community in Florida that considers themselves to be white. They don't consider themselves to be Latin or Hispanic or anything. They're white. And she is part of the white supremacist movement down in Florida. And she is a horrible human being. And she is injecting herself into the school debate as much as humanly possible. This is not a nice woman, folks. Let me give you some more background on her. She is part of a Christian nationalist fringe group that Miami Against Fascism has been reporting on, keeping track of. They are the County Citizens Defending Freedom Organization, CCDF. They're Christian nationalists is what they are. They are forcing into our schools Christian nationalism. This is what they do. And she is part of that organization. She is also, like I said, a member of the Proud Boys. I'll go out and say it. Other people are timid to say that because, well, she's only at all their damn rallies. She's only taking pictures with Enrique Tarrio smiling her fat, ugly face off. I'll say it. I don't give a damn. I know it's mean, but I don't care. I'm mean sometimes. That's who I am. This woman is ugly inside and out. This is more of what she's posted on her social media, just so that you can really get a good flavor of who she is. Here's memes from the Proud Boys. What the left fears more than anything are white people and black people coming together and loving their country. Quote from Candace Owens, of all people. Candace freaking Owens. I mean, this is the kind of stuff she puts on her social media. But that ain't the end of it, folks. And it sure isn't the worst of it. When I tell you she's a white supremacist, I mean she is a white supremacist. You cannot promote, and I want you to put these things side by side. You have Amanda Gorman's book about overcoming adversity and all of us doing better. You have Daily Salinas promoting a book called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion on her social media. It is the basis for white supremacy. It is a roundly debunked load of horse crap called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It is a fiction about Jewish people taking over the world, aka globalists, aka George Soros. All of their fictions are based in this roundly destroyed work of fiction. And she's promoting that book for everyone to read. But Amanda Gorman's book, not so much. Why? What could it be? I mean, what could it be about Amanda Gorman and her that is offensive to a white supremacist? I don't know. Maybe the author's skin tone? These people are horrific. These are the people that Ron DeSantis has made both in charge of and driving what is the curriculum for children in Florida. These are the people that are deciding what your children in Florida can be exposed to. Elders of Zion, A-OK. And it wasn't just the hill we climb. No, her complaint was also the ABCs of Black history. Pretty self-explanatory book there. She doesn't want kids reading the ABCs of Black history. Well, why would a white supremacist want anybody reading that, right? She also had a book, Cuban Kids, removed from the shelf. That's the title, Cuban Kids. It is a horrific book about the day in the life of Cuban school children. Now, why would a Florida Cuban white supremacist, why would they not want you reading a book about kids that actually live in Cuba? Well, if you follow the politics down there, those folks like Daley Salinas hate anything Cuba. They profess to love Cuba, but anything in Cuba, no. She also had Countries in the News, Cuba, the Cuba edition, taken off the shelf because, like I said, can't have anybody reading anything about actual Cuba, right? I mean, why would you want that? And probably the biggest slap in the face is she had, and the school district acquiesced, Love to Langston. And if you paid attention in school, you know who Langston Hughes is. You know how important he was to our history. He was a poet. He was a brilliant man. He spoke out eloquently against racism, against the treatment of Black people in our country. He spoke out against slavery. He spoke out against injustice, period. He was a wonderfully eloquent man. And he didn't just do it in a complaining manner. He did it by celebrating Black culture, the beautiful aspects of it, the good aspects of it. So I guess you can understand why somebody like Daley Salinas would find that threatening. I mean, why would you want a book by one of our most celebrated poets, an American treasure, that promotes we all do better when we all do better? Why would you want that on the shelves? Why would you want kids exposed to that when they can be exposed to the elders, the protocols of the elders of Zion? That is Ron DeSantis's Florida, folks. Cheers. I've said it 1,000 times. I've probably said it more than 1,000 times. I will tell you, vote every damn Republican out of office immediately. Vote in every election, local, all the way up to the president, folks. And when I say local, it's important. One last note on this daily Salinas story. Thank you, Pete. I appreciate you. I really do. Is it Peter or Pete? Tell me in the comments. There's no U.S. history without Native people or African people. Absolutely, because American history is our history, not white history. It is our history. And for there to be an America, it has to be our America. But one last note on Daily Salinas. One of the protests that she was involved in was for this guy. And this comes as a warning. This is Christopher Monzon. He made the news because he got his ass beaten in Hialeah. There's some debate as to what caused the conflict, but he got his ass beat by two people. He is a racist. He was at the Unite the Right rally. If you don't remember what the Unite the Right rally was, the Charlottesville rally. And yes, that is actually a Confederate flag in his hands. He was at the racist Unite the Right rally. He was caught on camera charging people with, they love to turn those flagpoles into weapons, charging people with a Confederate flag on a flagpole. This dirtbag ran for city council in Hialeah. He was demolished, came in dead last. But he ran, folks. He ran. So I am asking you, you have people out there right now today like Daily Salinas working for these racists, working to get people like Christopher Monzon in political office. You've got people like Ron DeSantis, Pudding Fingers, Little Ron, Meatball, empowering these people, putting them on your school boards. Every election is important, folks. Every election is vital. This has to be a new America. It cannot be where we stay asleep at the wheel. We just had local elections. If you can, show of hands of people in the chat that did not vote in this last round of local elections from just about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. I will bet it was most of you. Those were your school board elections. Yeah. Most states across the country. Your local elections, your school board elections were a couple weeks ago. And most of those people got elected with a couple hundred votes. And most of those people, you would be appalled at their views. So please, folks, again, I will beg you one more time. This has to be a new America. We have to vote in every election. You do. You just do. It all matters. It all matters. Let's get it done. Moving on. We have a tentative deal between McCarthy and the Republicans and Joe Biden, President Biden in the White House on the debt ceiling. To give you the Cliffs Notes version of it, you get screwed and a couple really, really wealthy oligarchs do real well. Let's break it down. The deal is it caps discretionary spending at 22 levels. They like to say at current levels, 23 levels, but you have to remember that's kind of a shyster trick. The 2023 budget, that is the current year's levels, was from the 22 budget. So while they're trying to say it's the current year, It's really a budget from 22. It's going to freeze that in 24. And you're going to get a 1% increase in 25. Why is that a problem? And we're going to break this down into different sections. This is just this part of the deal and why it's a problem. And yeah, you are going to want to hear this. I know you think you aren't going to want to hear this, but you're going to want to hear this. I'm trying to find your comment where you said, you got away from me. Stay with me, folks. So what does that mean? What does that mean, freezing that spending? Well, it means inflation happens and our federal government is diminished because inflation. Just one basic portion of this. Inflation affects you and your household. It affects your ability to purchase things and buy services and everything. Well, guess what, folks? It affects the federal government also. So if you freeze spending, you are ignoring inflation, which is cruising right around 4% right now, 4 to 5%. So basically, you're cutting discretionary spending in, I don't know, VA hospitals. You're cutting out the increased spending that we had in VA hospitals. You remember we had tackled the issue of the horrific wait times, the document backlogs, all of that. Those programs that we put in place to fix all that is still working. We had spending increases in the next budget for those purposes. They're gone. They're gone. The VA gets screwed. The CDC, Center for Disease Control, they get screwed. The NIH gets screwed. You know, remember Dr. Fauci? He worked for the NIH. Everybody thought he worked for the CDC. That was no. He worked for the National Institutes of Health. COVID was not all he did. And he was a national treasure and served us well into his 80s, and I'm grateful that we had him. But the National Institutes of Health, frozen, you know, all the preparations they were making, out the window for the next COVID, for the next pandemic. All of that shut down. Mom, Deb, I really appreciate this. You have no idea how much this helps keep things going here. On my way back to Austin to rejoin the fight, Texas, Paul, I wish everyone I knew listened. Make that happen, folks. Tell everybody you know to come here so they can hear real information. They can hear things like the FDA's budget just got frozen with no increase for inflation, no increase for additional staff. You know, the Food and Drug Administration, I mean, does that sound somewhat important? You know, I mean, think about everything the government does. You know, you've got these right wingers that are on this constant, government is bad. Government is bad. Bull crap. Bull crap. Government does wonderful things like, let's say, what was the last time that your child, your beautiful little granddaughter, had a fever, caught the flu, stomach bug? When was the last time you gave her medicine and that medicine killed her? Well, that used to happen, folks. You know, we didn't invent these government agencies just because it was a Tuesday and we were bored. That used to happen. Flint Reed, I sure appreciate you. No, it $5 is everything, brother. It is. I mean, I am grateful for anything. And you folks that haven't contributed out there, you just being here, you just hitting the like button, you just hitting the subscribe button and telling people about the show. I am grateful for that. Not everybody has $5 to throw. I mean, that's a big deal, man. I appreciate that very much. That is a big deal. Like I was saying, when's the last time you thought medicine you were going to give your child was going to oh yeah, that's 5 pounds. Hell, that's more than $5, brother. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. That is a big deal. Thanks for pointing that out, Renee. Thank you for pointing that out. When was the last time you worried that medicine you were going to give your child or your grandchild was going to kill them? That used to happen, folks. Corporations are not these malevolent things. They used to make drugs that would kill people. It sounds counterintuitive. Why would you want to kill your customers? But they did. Meat. When was the last time you had yourself a nice medium rare steak and thought you might die because of it? When's the last time you bought a chicken and it had pustule scars all over it? That doesn't happen anymore. It used to. We don't get that chicken in our grocery stores anymore, but we used to. The federal government does things, and Republicans just froze them in place, did not allow them to grow this year just on inflation. Now, we're not even talking about additional jobs they have to do. God forbid one of these agencies actually be tested like, I don't know, FEMA. But no, their budget's frozen. Thank you, Mark. I sure appreciate you, brother. I sure appreciate you. And HRSA. This is an organization you've never heard of, and I wanted to specifically talk about the HRSA, Health Resource Service Administration. HRSA serves rural communities. Think about that, folks. They do things like they give nurses scholarships. They pay back nurses' school debts if they work in underserved communities, rural communities. Think about that. Republican voters, their representation just froze in place the funding for the only thing that gets them health care. I appreciate you folks throwing stuff out there. Air traffic control reductions. Absolutely. Absolutely. Air traffic controllers have to be trained. We have to bring in new ones. Benaloco, I appreciate you. Your smiling face is always just enough, but I sure appreciate that $5. I really do. If y'all don't know, Benaloco is one cool hippie chick. I happen to know her personally. She is more than just a pothead. She's a friend. She is one crazy hippie chick, and I love her. She is wonderful. But, yeah, air traffic controllers have to be trained. They have to be brought on the job. I mean, they have to, you have got to have experience, and air traffic keeps increasing. The more people we get more population every year. If you're my age, the population of the United States has doubled in our lifetime. So, yeah, we need more air traffic controllers all the time. Deidre, it is so good to see you. I hope you're feeling better. Thank you, Deidre. I really appreciate you. But we need these folks. We need these air traffic controllers. We need we need the nurses that serve these tribal communities. I mean, I want you to think, have you ever been to an Indian reservation? I have. I went out to Monument Valley, one of the most beautiful places on earth, which you need to visit someday if you haven't been there. Monument Valley. It is absolutely one of the most beautiful desert scapes I have ever seen. Me and Mrs. Texas Paul went out there, and out of sheer luck, unplanned gorgeousness we hit when the desert bloom happened. It was like a floral carpet across the desert. And then you had the mesas that just jutted up out of the landscapes, and it was like standing in a painting. The people that live there is nothing there, folks, but people. You know, if you remember the old REA, the Rural Electrification Association, the government figured out a long time ago there are going to be places in this country, because we are such a large country. We have huge swaths of our country where there just very few people live. So industry isn't going to serve those people. We wouldn't have electricity across our country if it wasn't for the government figuring that fact out and creating the REA. Well, the HRSA is like that. They know these Inuits out on ice floes. The Inuits out on ice, out in the most barren areas of Alaska are served by the HRSA, as well as patients of high cost diseases like HIV, heart transplants. Sherry, I appreciate you. I really do. And I don't know why you say it like that, because I guarantee you $5 is a big deal. It is a big deal. It really is. I don't know where these rich people come from that don't think $5 is a big deal, but it's a big deal. But like I was saying, these tribal communities, they're served by the HRSA. And we get a lot of our nurses out of that program because, becoming a nurse is ridiculously expensive in this country. You're talking about years' salary in many cases just to become a nurse. The HRSA is a conduit for bringing nurses to us. Boy, Trina, I'm glad you could be here. I am glad you could be here. Forgive me for that, slurping that coffee on the microphone. I do apologize for the folks. I try to mute the mic when I do that. So that was part of the deal. Republicans insisted on that. They're also going to take back unspent COVID funds. Well, that doesn't sound too crazy. I mean, if they haven't spent it, why would we let them keep it? The problem is they didn't waste it. They were using it like the VA was using their COVID funds, because COVID, surprise, is not gone. There are still people dealing with long COVID. There are still people dealing with just getting COVID itself. It's still happening, folks. I am vaccinated, and I've caught COVID twice this year out of my own stupidity. It was very light, don't get me wrong, but if you're a veteran, if you're a Vietnam veteran, you're very old. Even a mild case of COVID can punch your number. And the VA is still dealing with that, and they're going to take $2 billion away from the VA. It's a crime. It is a crime that Republicans do this. Because just to remind you, Democrats didn't want to do that. They didn't want to do that. They were held hostage by Republican terrorists who were going to try to destroy everything through a debt default if they didn't get these things I'm explaining to you. Republicans literally blackmailed us for these things that I'm telling you right now. Vicky, I appreciate you. I really do. Grateful to be able to support messaging. Thank you, Texas Paul. No, thank you. My messaging doesn't work if you're not here. If you're not hitting that like button, if you're not hitting the subscribe button, you're not telling your friends about it, my messaging doesn't work. I am grateful to you, Vicky. I'm grateful to all of you. And I hope all of you become potheads. I really do. Keith, thank you. Thank you for helping me get the message out. Brendan, as always, good to see you, a regular. My Irish amigo. But like I was saying, they're taking back the COVID funds and the VA, old folks' homes. They're taking COVID funds from old folks' homes that didn't waste it. They held on to it. They're using it as they need it because COVID's still out there. Even though the emergency has been declared over because enough of us finally got vaccinated, you still have those jackass Republicans that call themselves purebloods. Like, that's not creepy as hell because they haven't been vaccinated. You have an entire segment of this country that is proud they're not vaccinated. Not kidding. They call themselves purebloods. How insane is that? West Colorado, man, I hope to see you. That is some beautiful territory, boy. I tell you, West Colorado is up into the Rocky Mountains. That is gorgeous territory. I hope to see you someday. Thank you for the support. But that's not the end of it. Taking back COVID funds, that's not the end of it. They've forced work requirements to receive SNAP. This is a diabolical thing. This is a diabolical thing. To give you some idea who is on SNAP, who is receiving SNAP, Texas, which does nothing, my home state, which does nothing for people, that we don't have a social safety net here in Texas. We take the Republican social safety net and rebrand it as our own. So if you get your SNAP benefits, you get it on what's called a Lone Star card. It's a card that looks like the state of Texas. And then my weakling governor, Greg Death Wheels Abbott, pretends that it's something he's doing for people. But the maximum income, folks, that you can have in your household, not just your income, your entire household, is $5,000. That's less than $500 a month. Now, if you put a work requirement on SNAP, how hard is it going to be to stay under, $450 a month, roughly, so that you don't lose your benefits altogether? Because that's really the goal. Because if you get housing assistance, you can't have X amount of income. Imagine, and those work requirements go up to people that are 54 years old. I want you to imagine a 54-year-old disabled person being forced to work for their SNAP benefits. I don't know, as a Walmart greeter or whatever, trying to make sure that they don't get too many hours so that they lose their home, they lose everything. I saw this debunked video going around. Forgive me for a second. I saw this debunked video going around. Hot in here. I need to turn my fan on. And it was these drug addicts. Boy, they look clean and they were nice looking. These folks can never put these bullshit AstroTurf videos together well. But what they were doing is they were taking water bottles and they were pouring them out, supposedly, that they bought with their SNAP, water bottles of water, cases of water, pouring it out, and then taking the bottles in to get their deposit back on the bottles so that they could have cash for drugs. I don't know if you could figure the math out on that one, but yeah, it was debunked. It turned out to be total crap. But it's that fantasy that these right wingers have about what people on SNAP are. No, folks, these are people that are on the hardest of times that we as a civilized society take care of. And now you have to have a job to get that benefit. You have to have a job to get that benefit, which is going to disqualify you for the benefit, which means you're going to lose all your other benefits. So that little piddling ass job that you can secure in your piss poor shape will not cover any of that. So basically, we've just destroyed our social safety net for Republicans and their billionaire donors. And this is where it gets bad. This is where it gets really bad. James, I sure appreciate you. I do appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do. Jackie, I really appreciate you. I really do. Thank you. This is where it gets really bad, folks, because what was also included in this negotiation was a easing on energy project permits. Yeah, like that has anything to do with our debt and the debt ceiling. Oh, no, it's just a straight payday. But a payday for who? Well, it was for this guy impersonating a penis. This guy, you've heard me talk about before. And folks, I want you to pay close attention to what I tell you. This guy I have talked to you before to you. His name is Paul Singer. His name is Paul Singer. Paul Singer is the tallest hog at the trough at the Manhattan Institute. You've heard me say that before. And you probably didn't put it all together. He is the tallest hog at the trough of the Manhattan Institute, and out of the Manhattan Institute came the anti-CRT nonsense, the anti-woke nonsense. You know, the Target protests that are going on, that's not free. Those trolls that suddenly magically appeared on all your social media, those aren't generated for free. They're not real people. 9 out of 10 people, you know, I call them people, but they're accounts. 9 out of 10 accounts you see talking about the anti-woke stuff are just fabricated. They're just false. It's to create the bandwagon effect. In advertising, the bandwagon effect is show something as though it's hugely popular and a lot of people are doing it, and that'll make other people want to do it. That's the basics of it. That's the strategy they're using, folks. And it all comes from this guy. And what does this guy do? He owns Elliott Investments. He's a billionaire. He's an oligarch. He owns Elliott Asset Investments. And what does Elliott own? What does Paul Singer's company own? Marathon Petroleum. Peabody Energy Corp. Energy Select Sector, a big chunk of the Energy Select Sector Fund, the S&P fund, on energy companies. Van Eck Vectors Oil Services Fund. Seadrill Limited. That's self-explanatory. Drilling. Ocean drilling. Valaris Limited, another deep sea drilling company. Noble Corp, another oil services company. Yeah, folks. The guy that brought you all the AstroTurf BS that is all over your social media just got paid by the Republican Party in the debt ceiling blackmail. Do you get it now? These people did all of this campaign work that they called issue. You know, this is advocating for issues, but it's focused towards the Republican agenda, putting fingers and all of his anti-CRT crap, his fight against Disney and all of that nonsense. Yeah, that wasn't free, and it was paid for by Penis Head. And now he just got paid back. You took it in the shorts to get him paid back. If you're a veteran, if you're anybody that does anything with the government for literally a dozen wealthy jackasses, I will tell you, billionaires are your enemy. Let me stop for a second. Lisa, Linda, I appreciate you. Linda Orndorff, I do appreciate you. It is better to donate here or through a monthly Patreon donation. Here is fantastic because I have not set up a Patreon yet. I haven't. We're working on that. There's a couple things that I have to do to make that happen that I'm still working on. Sure, Realist, I do appreciate you. And yes, Midas Touch rules. Nobody is doing the work they do. Nobody is doing the work they do. I am a contributor, proud contributor to Midas Touch. I am glad to be working with them. So let's talk about who else benefited from this little gimme, this energy company gimme that ended up in the debt ceiling deal that had nothing to do with the debt ceiling. Oh, yeah, everybody knows these jackasses. It's the Koch brothers. Of course, one of them's dead now, David Koch, but you know how businesses work when you're a billionaire. The businesses live on. Yeah, the Koch brothers. They own Flint Hills Resources. It's a massive oil company out of Kansas, I believe. And then you got Koch Pipeline Company. It was for projects, easing of projects. I wonder if Koch Pipeline Company is going to benefit from that. And that's not the end of it, folks. It's not the end of it. These folks just in your face, paid back the people that were responsible for the anti-woke nonsense, the CRT nonsense, all the astroturf that is flooding your social media, ruining your social media. They just got paid back in public, right in front of you, after you took cuts. Tens of millions of people are served by HRSA. HRSA alone. Those tens of millions of people lost. These oligarchs gained. Paul Singer gained from this debate. He was paid back for his anti-CRT, anti-woke nonsense that comes out of his institute, which is how they funnel all that money, is through institutes. They're going to have to pay taxes, and that's what's killing them. They're coming after your Social Security and Medicare next. They didn't get it in this round, but they're going to. Just some inside baseball, folks. If you look at your paycheck, there's a line that says federal taxes, and then there's a line that says FICA. FICA pays for your Social Security, Medicare, pays into the trust fund. It is not a tax. It's your contributions to those trust funds. The contributions to those trust funds go negative, as in there aren't enough coming in to cover what's going out, projected in 2031. That's less than 10 years away, folks. That means the trust fund will start to deplete quickly. It's projected to last 2 years. And in 2033, if nothing is done, they go insolvent. Medicare dies, Social Security dies. But to these billionaires, they don't care about that. They don't care about that. What they've cared about is that gap between what FICA, your contributions pay in, and what gets paid out. Because that gap has been stolen every year thrown into the slush fund that is the federal budget to cover the tax cuts that these billionaires get. When that gap goes away and there's no money to steal there, we will have to either dramatically cleave our government to death, or these clowns like Paul Singer will have to pay more in taxes, and they would rather die. Billionaires are your enemy, folks. Billionaires are your enemy. That's not true for every first world nation. Other nations, they have basic health care. They have basic income. Other nations, you get a paycheck from the government just for contributing to society, just for existing. Other nations do things for their people. Education, retirement. You know, in France, they just had massive protests because they wanted to raise the retirement age in France. 2 years. Other countries do things for their people. These billionaires, and it's a handful, it's 10 or 12 people in this country that are funding this stuff. They're your enemy because they would rather freeze everything else the government does and hurt every service that you rely on that the government provides. Like, I don't know, inspecting your meat, making sure your drugs are safe, making sure that there's health care out in the middle of Indian reservations. All those things that the government does, they would rather kill that than they would pay a nickel more. They're your enemy. They just are. Leah, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you, Leah. Thank you so much. And this is a great question. Love you, Texas Paul. Why didn't they 14th it? I will tell you, I sent an email to the White House. You know, folks, I am tight with the White House. I am. I just am. Everybody loves me. And I told them that you people would rather see a default and immediate invocation of the 14th. When I say default, I don't mean let the disaster happen. The moment we default on our debt, the 14th Amendment immediately jumps into play. If you don't know what the 14th Amendment is, it says no law, because back in the day, these same Confederate loving sons of Republicans, we'll call them the Republicans of the day, since the party switched places. It was actually the Democrats back then, but we all know the party switched about 50 years ago. The Republicans of the day, we'll call them, cons. The cons of the day tried to use laws to bankrupt the government and make it impossible for the government to pay their bills. So the 14th Amendment was added to the Constitution that said you can't do that. Nothing can interfere with the government paying its bills, which makes the debt ceiling itself unconstitutional, but you can't take that to court and have it removed until it interferes with paying the debt. And since they just made a deal and they're going to push the debt ceiling up, it didn't trigger the 14th Amendment. My email to the White House said very simply, you people want to default on the debt and immediately invoke the 14th Amendment and keep paying our bills. That means no crash, no bad news, no nothing happens, but it puts us in court to eliminate the debt ceiling, which is unconstitutional to begin with. It's just unconstitutional. The 14th Amendment lays it out clearly. Nothing can interfere with us paying our debts. So, yeah, I hope I answered your question there, Leah. And thank you for taking us into the roundtable section of our show. We got about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes left, depending on how long you want to folks want to go. You know, I always end the show with a conversation with you folks. So please, any questions you have, comments you want to put out there, throw them in the comments. I am more than happy. This is why, folks, it's really good for you to watch this on YouTube, Twitch. YouTube's great because it helps my YouTube channel. You can post into the live chat, and we can hear what you want to say. And if you want to find my YouTube channel, it's really easy. Just go to realtexaspaul.com, and there's a link for it right there. It'll take you right to it. So, what would y'all like to talk about in the roundtable? Yes, the deal is tentative. It is tentative, which means something could blow it up. And I hope President Biden blows it up. And I hope that he invokes the 14th Amendment and we are done with this damn debt ceiling. Leah Kelly, when and what time are the Wednesday shows starting? I tried to find it last Wednesday and couldn't. Yes, whenever I'm going to add something new, Leah, I don't do it immediately. I don't like to make quick changes. So everything took effect this week. You'll notice the show started at 10 instead of 9 because 9 o'clock Central was really hard for West Coast folks to get to. I mean, it's 7 in the morning. You got to wake up, make your coffee at 6:30. I'm not going to do that to people on a Sunday. So we moved it up to 10 o'clock, and the Wednesday show will also be at 10 o'clock. Give plenty of time to get up and get moving. Thanks for asking. Thank you. D Goddess, I appreciate you. I really appreciate you, man. I really do. Oh, sorry for gulping coffee into the microphone. Trying to be better about that, folks. Watching from Massachusetts. Good to hear it. Good to hear it. I love the East Coast, folks. I'm from Texas, born and raised. If you don't take some time to travel on the East Coast, you are robbing yourself. It is living history. Folks on the East Coast are just used to it. They don't even notice it anymore. We get there and we're like, wow. Yeah, I mean, it's living history. Ain't that the truth, JBO? Ain't that the truth? You know what? Y'all need to do me a favor. Do me a favor. Call Keurig. Just send him an email. Contact him any way you can. Tell him, hey, you need to be sponsoring this guy. He loves your product. That coffee maker in the opening, that's a Keurig. Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. I am telling you, that is an incredible city. An incredible city. Chicago's not East Coast, but so much of Chicago is just like a section of our history just cut out and placed there. It just feels like, you're in the 40s again and around so many of the buildings in Chicago, and they're well kept. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it's a, trashed out old place. It's why I love to go to New York. I love New York. These Texans around here that don't ever travel, which there are some of them, never travel. They're like, New York. Oh my God. You have no idea what you're talking about. New York is one of the greatest cities on earth. Flint, I appreciate you, bud. 2 pounds. Thank you, my friend. Hey, Flint, let me throw a question back at you if you don't mind. Would you rather be sending me euros? You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Brexit. I want to hear your feelings on it. Sherry, I just went over the points that I do have available in the show, but the deal itself, as you mentioned, is quote tentative, but it's going to go through. It's going to go through because if McCarthy does anything stupid to try to pull it off the table, we only need 5 Republicans to that want to hold on to the debt ceiling, that don't want to let, because the minute they actually, like I said, allow the debt ceiling to force a default, the 14th Amendment will rip the debt ceiling out of our laws, and they don't want to lose that. They don't want to lose that. They like this blackmail. This is extended out to January 2025 is when this is anticipated to last to. January 2025. It's to get us through the elections. And Republicans don't, they don't want to lose that. In 2025, they want to blackmail us again. So, yeah, this is going to go through. Minnesota is doing amazing things. There's an area of Minnesota called the Iron Range up there that in Minnesota that's very conservative. I was actually worried about which direction Minnesota was going to go, but they have really, really done a great job of moving left. They really have. Mary, I appreciate this comment. Anyone in Texas who makes less than $45,000 a year is a thorn in the billionaire's eyes. They do not want the lower classes to grow in pay, life, and freedoms. They want to eliminate all of you. That is true. That is true. The oligarchs only survive if there is a permanent poverty-stricken underclass, and they will fight to keep it. They will fight to keep it. Billionaires are your enemy, folks. Billionaires are your enemy. Always vote for your interests, which will always oppose theirs. Yeah, the Gephardt rule is long gone. Good catch there, though. All right. Boy, you people are putting some great comments out. Yeah, my friend Tony Michaels, he is going to do a great show on this also. If you ever get a chance to watch Tony Michaels, if you haven't watched Tony Michaels, check out his show. He's got a very entertaining show, and I join him on Tuesdays. Let's see. Let's find some more good comments here. While I'm looking for these. If you can tell me how you folks feel about the new Wednesday show, if you'll be able to join me on Wednesdays, kind of give me a show of hands if you're going to be able to join me on Wednesdays. I'm really hoping that it's going to be successful and grow our audience base. Christine, representing the beautiful central coast of California, right next to the Monterey Bay Sanctuary, never moving if I can help it. Folks, if you have not been to California, you cannot understand California. Why real estate is so high in California. It is an amazing state. Mrs. Texas Paul and I took a long vacation a few years back, and we started in LA and drove all the way up to Calaveras Big Trees in Northern California and took our time doing it. And I will tell you, every section of California, every section is amazing. Spend some time there. You will not regret that vacation. Nicole Marie, Paul, should we take bets on how much longer McCarthy will get to keep the gavel? The clown car caucus wanted a default, and only one of them can call for a motion to vacate. Yeah, but there's really nobody to really take out McCarthy. The Republican Party is just a total trash heap right now. There's just no place for the clown car caucuses to go. There just isn't. He's safe. He's safe till 2024 when we win the election. Boy, Michael Thomas, you hit this on the head. The light rail system in Minneapolis, St. Paul is stellar. I wish San Antonio had light rail. Texas cities will have more. I'm telling you, I have wanted that proposed rail system that goes from Dallas to Houston to San Antonio, back up to Dallas for decades. They have been talking about that. That would be huge to alleviate the traffic on I-35, on 31, just all the other arteries that cut across, just I-10 traffic, everything. It would really transform the state and grow us in ways that they cannot imagine. Yeah, Denver light rail is good as well. Everybody that has light rail, they all love it and they want to keep it forever. But billionaires don't want it because light rail sometimes doesn't cover its own costs, and it has to be paid for with taxes. And anything that has to be paid for with taxes that serves the people they do not want. Billionaires are your enemy. All right. I would love a cowboy hat sponsor, but I buy I buy Resistol and Stetson hats, and I think this one's a Resistol. Yeah, this one's my Resistol. My Stetson's hanging over there. My straw Stetson's hanging over there. They just buy a good hat, folks. If you're going to buy a hat, buy a good one. I would love a hat sponsor. Sure, realist. There are still a few Republicans who don't approve of the antics of the pro-Trumplicans who thrive on lies, bribes, grifts, fear, violence, and anger, and all the pardons. You know, folks, I go hard at the churches. That comment right there reminds me of everything I get when there are several great creators on Twitter. If you're not following Antifa Operative, her name's Bex. If you don't follow her, she posts daily pedophiles that get arrested or get convicted, or just daily. And they're in the churches, they're in the police forces, and they're in the Republican Party. Always. Always. And if I go at the churches and I tell people things like, you're taking your kids to their predators. You're taking the kids to the people that attack them. You need to clean up your churches. I get wildly attacked with, they're not real Christians. Don't attack Christians. It's the same thing with the Republican Party. Let me tell you about the best Christian I know. A guy by the name of George Termiska. He's nobody you ever heard of. He's just a guy that's living his life. And I tell you what, he lives his life biblically. And I don't mean he proselytizes. He does not. He does not. He just doesn't cuss. He is one of the nicest men you would ever want to meet in your life. He's an amazing father. He's a kind soul. He lifts people up. He does things charitably that you've never heard of. He does things personally for people that you will never hear about. He lives his life as a godly man. And I'm telling you that it has not one damn thing to do with God. It's who he is. It's who he is. He's a good and decent human being who strives to be a good and decent human being. And he is so humble that he doesn't even give himself credit for that. He attributes it to an invisible sky wizard. If he wants to do that, great. But George Stamiska is an amazing human being because George Stamiska wants to be an amazing human being. He is not what represents Christianity today. He is not. He just isn't. And these Republicans that you bring up that are decent people do not represent the Republican Party today. They just do not. They're aberrations. Just like George Stamiska, the real Christian does not represent Christianity today. He just doesn't. Anyways, folks, I know that pissed a lot of people off, and I'm sorry it pissed you off, but I will continue to say it, even though I hope you stick with me, even though I will continue to say that. But I love you, folks. It's been a wonderful show. I will say this again, spending time with you lifts my heart because I see the comments. I sit here, I read your comments as I talk about the show. The things that you say prove to me there are good and decent people out there, and it was wonderful spending time with you. But unfortunately, we are out of time. So please join me next Wednesday, 10 a.m. That's our new programming time. Sundays at 10 a.m., Wednesdays at 10 a.m. That way we don't have to wait so long for a breakdown of major news, and we can cover more of it. It's been wonderful to see you folks. You have a beautiful day.